The first mistake the Sable Directorate made was choosing a human as the sacrifice. The second mistake was assuming Captain Ilara Venn would die quietly when they threw her into the hollow between stars. She was already bleeding when they dragged her across the glass floor of the command deck. The ship beneath her boots was not built for feet. It had no railings, no chairs, no warmth, only black walls veined with faint silver light and thousands of hovering screens that showed the same impossible thing from every angle, a region of space where starlight bent inward and never came back. The hollow. Every civilization in the Orion Spur had a different name for it. The Silent Wound, the Dead Choir, the place where signals drowned. Ships that entered it did not explode. They simply stopped answering. Rescue vessels sent after them stopped answering too. Probes returned with their memory cores wiped clean, their outer shells aged by centuries, their internal clocks still counting only minutes, and now the Directorate had brought a prisoner to its edge. Ilara lifted her head just enough to see the enemy admiral watching her through a curtain of blue vapor. Admiral Threx of the Sable Directorate was tall and narrow, with 4 blade-like arms folded beneath his polished armor. His species did not blink. Their eyes were black lenses that reflected everything and revealed nothing. "You understand why you are here," Threx said. Ilara swallowed blood and gave him a thin smile. "Because your navigation officers are cowards." A ripple passed through the officers around the deck. Some hissed, some tilted their skulls in confusion. The translator, struggling with human sarcasm, softened the insult into something more diplomatic. Threx understood it anyway. "Because humans endure isolation better than linked minds," he said. "Because your nervous systems are crude enough to remain stable where more refined species fracture. Because you will enter the hollow, retrieve what we require, and return." "And if I refuse?" One of his lower arms gestured. The largest screen widened, revealing a planet wrapped in ocean and emerald cloud. Dawn moved slowly across its northern continent. Cities glittered along the coastlines like strings of amber fire. Home. Not Earth. Earth was old and guarded and far away. This was Kestrel, the first true garden world humanity had built with its own hands, after 3 centuries of scraping survival from dust moons and asteroid tunnels. 48 million people lived beneath those clouds. Farmers, engineers, children who had never seen ration lines, families who believed the war was still far from them. Threx watched her watch the planet. "The Directorate fleet is within striking range," he said. "Your colony's defense grid has already been mapped. Its shield towers are old. Its orbital cannons are civilian conversions. If you fail, Kestrel burns." Ilara's smile faded. There it was. The reason her hands stopped shaking. Not because she was no longer afraid. Fear was still there, cold and sharp beneath her ribs, but fear became useful when it had a direction. "What exactly do you want inside the hollow?" she asked. Threx turned toward the dark region on the screen. "A relic. That narrows it down. A command seed from the Architect War. It is buried inside a structure your records call the Lantern Ark." Ilara had heard that name once, from a drunk historian on Luna Station, who claimed the oldest human maps were copied from things no human had ever built. The Lantern Ark was a myth wrapped in warning codes, a derelict megastructure drifting inside the hollow, supposedly older than half the mapped species in the Spur. No one knew what it did. No one knew who made it. No one survived long enough to bring back proof. "You want me to fly into a place that eats ships," Ilara said. "Board a ghost station, steal an ancient control device, and bring it back to the people threatening to murder my world." "Yes." "You practiced that speech." Threx stepped closer. His reflection stretched across the polished floor until it touched her boots. "Humor is a common human defense response," he said. "It will not alter the outcome." "No," Ilara said softly, "but it annoys you. That helps." For the first time, Threx's perfect stillness cracked. One blade hand twitched. The guards forced her toward the launch bay. She did not resist. Resistance at the wrong moment was just another way to die early. The corridor opened into a cavernous chamber where a small human courier ship waited inside a ring of black docking clamps. Alara stopped walking. The courier was hers. The Sparrowhawk looked like a dented metal beetle compared to the Directorate vessels around it. Its portside plating still bore scorch marks from the ambush near Relay 17. One stabilizer fin was patched with mismatched alloy. A lucky charm carved from kestrel driftwood hung inside the cockpit window. They had captured her ship with her. That was either stupidity or luck. Alara had survived enough wars to know that the universe often disguised one as the other. A Directorate technician floated toward her, carrying a collar of silver needles. Neural compliance band. Alara stared at it. I get seasick. The technician paused. Irrelevant. Only when people put alien needles in my skull. Two guards gripped her shoulders. The collar snapped around the base of her neck. Cold pain drilled into her spine. The deck vanished for half a second. When it returned, Threx's voice was inside her head, thin and metallic. If you deviate from mission parameters, the band will stop your heart. Alara exhaled slowly through her teeth. Good to know, she said aloud. She was shoved into the Sparrowhawk. The hatch sealed behind her. For one fragile moment, she was alone with the smell of burnt wiring, old coffee, machine oil, and home. Her ship greeted her with a cracked speaker burst. Captain Venn, the onboard assistant said. Unauthorized foreign devices detected. Would you like me to complain? Alara closed her eyes. Not yet, Finch. Disappointing. The launch clamps released. The Sparrowhawk drifted from the belly of the enemy carrier into open space. Ahead, the hollow swallowed the stars. It did not look like a nebula or a black hole or a storm. It looked like someone had cut a wound through reality and stitched the edges with frozen lightning. Light bent at its border. Radio chatter died as her ship crossed the outer marker. Behind her, the Directorate fleet became a smear of distant shadows. Threx's voice whispered through the compliance band. Proceed. Alara gripped the controls. Finch, give me full manual. Manual control is not recommended. Neither is being kidnapped. Manual granted. The control yoke unlocked beneath her palms. The screens flickered. The first wave hit a moment later. It was not turbulence. It was absence. The cockpit went silent so suddenly that Alara heard her own pulse beating inside her ears. The engine hum vanished. The airflow hiss vanished. Even Finch's background processing tones disappeared. For one horrifying second, she thought she had gone deaf. Then the lights dimmed, every screen filled with static. Alara's breath fogged in the cold. Finch? No answer. The ship rolled left. She corrected by instinct, using the emergency gyroscope and a half-dead attitude needle that had been old when her grandmother was young. Modern guidance was useless. Sensor maps returned blank. Star trackers found no stars. The hollow did not merely block signals, it denied them. A shape moved outside the cockpit. Alara froze. Something enormous drifted beyond the glass, pale and ribbed, like the skeleton of a moon-sized creature. It vanished when she turned toward it. Another appeared below her, then another above. Not ships, not debris, impressions, echoes. The hollow was full of things that were almost there. A whisper slid through the cockpit. Not through the radio, through memory. Alara, her hands tightened on the controls. The voice sounded like her father. He had died 12 years ago, sealing a reactor breach on Ganymede. She had been 22, angry enough to punch a chaplain and proud enough not to cry until she was alone. Now his voice moved through the cold cabin like breath against her ear. Turn back, little star. Alara stared ahead. My father never called me that, she said. The whisper changed, became her mother, then her first flight instructor. Then her own voice as a child. Each one asked her to turn back. Each one promised rest. Each one knew something it should not know. The compliance band pulsed against her spine. Proceed. Pick a side, Alara muttered. The darkness ahead split open. The lantern arc appeared. It was not a ship. It was a city folded into a ring, a shattered halo of bronze towers and white spines rotating around a central sphere of blue fire. Pieces of it hung disconnected, yet moved in perfect formation. Vast panels opened and closed like eyelids. Around it drifted hundreds of dead vessels from 100 species and 1,000 years, all caught in silent orbit like insects around a flame. Alara forgot to breathe. The Ark was real, and it was awake. A beam of pale light struck the Sparrowhawk. Every bolt in the hull screamed. The ship shuddered as something scanned it layer by layer, peeling through metal, memory, bone. A symbol appeared on the dead central screen. Not Directorate, not any known trade script. Human, not modern English. Older, fragmented. A pre-expansion emergency code. Welcome back. Alara stared at the words until they blurred. Finch, she whispered. Tell me you're seeing this. Static. The Ark pulled her in. Docking was not a choice. A magnetic force seized the Sparrowhawk and dragged it toward a bay large enough to swallow a battleship. The airlock sealed around her. Atmosphere hissed outside. Gravity returned with a stomach-turning lurch. Finch crackled back to life. I have several complaints. Put them in order. First, I was dead for 4 minutes. Second, this station just accessed our hull registry without permission. Third, there is a welcome message in a language that predates legal coffee. Alara unstrapped herself. Can you scan? Poorly. The structure appears to be made of unknown composite materials, impossible geometry, and bad intentions. The compliance band burned. Retrieve the command seed, Threx ordered. You have 2 hours. Alara touched the collar, feeling the needle points beneath her skin. The signal should not have reached inside the hollow. That meant the band was not using normal transmission. It was tied to her nervous system, using her as the relay. Useful information. Painful, but useful. She took a plasma cutter, an old ballistic sidearm, 3 charge packs, and a coil of climbing line. Then she opened the hatch. The lantern arc smelled like rain on hot stone. That was the first impossible thing. The second was the corridor. It had been built for humans. Not exactly. The proportions were slightly wrong. The ceiling too high, the floor too smooth, the door frames too wide. But the handholds were placed where human hands could reach them. The warning panels glowed at human eye level. The atmosphere was breathable. Cold, but breathable. Alara moved carefully, boots echoing across the white metal floor. Lights awakened ahead of her one by one. Behind her they dimmed. A path. The Ark wanted her somewhere. That was rarely good. She followed anyway because Kestrel hung behind her like a loaded gun. The first body appeared at the end of the corridor. It was not human. It wore a pressure suit of green ceramic, cracked open at the chest. The creature inside had 3 arms, a long skull, and silver thread woven into its bones. Its helmet visor was shattered outward, as if something inside had tried to escape. Finch whispered through her earpiece. Species identified as Kirin, extinct, estimated death, 900 years ago. Alara crouched beside the body. Scratches covered the floor around it, lines carved by desperate hands. Do not sing back. She stood very slowly. A sound came from deeper in the Ark. Not music, not speech. A low-layered vibration that made her teeth ache. The corridor walls shifted. Alara ran. The floor opened behind her in square sections, dropping into darkness. She leapt over the first gap, slammed into a wall, pushed off, and sprinted harder. The Ark rearranged itself as she moved, closing doors, opening others, forcing her through a narrowing route. The compliance band pulsed faster. Threx shouted inside her skull, but his words broke apart into static. She reached a circular chamber just as the corridor behind her folded shut. Silence returned. At the center of the chamber stood a pillar of glass. Inside it floated a dark seed the size of a human heart, wrapped in slow-moving rings of light. The command seed. Too easy. Alara did not move toward it. She looked at the floor. No dust near the pillar, no scorch marks, no dead explorers, no obvious trap. That made it worse. Finch, she murmured. Any readings? Energy output inconsistent. Object appears dormant, active, absent, and irritated. That's not a scan. That's a mood. I work with available data. The band stabbed pain into her spine. Take it. Alara stepped forward. The pillar lit up. A human face appeared in the glass. She stopped. The face belonged to a woman in her 60s, with close-cropped gray hair and tired eyes. Not a hologram made for display, a recording, damaged and old beyond reason. "If you are seeing this," the woman said, "then the Hollow has allowed you through. That means the enemy is near, or already here. I am Dr. Samira Cho, mission architect of the Lantern Ark. I am sorry." Ilara's throat tightened. Samira Cho was a name from the earliest expansion myths, a genius engineer who vanished before the first colony wars. She was supposed to have died in an experimental jump accident nearly 800 years ago. The recording flickered. "We did not build this place," Cho said. "We found it. We thought it was a refuge. We were wrong. The Ark is a lock. The Hollow is the door, and what waits beyond it must never be released." The chamber trembled. Ilara whispered, "What waits beyond?" As if the recording heard her, Cho's expression darkened. During the first age of interstellar expansion, humanity detected a pattern in dead systems. Stars drained without flare, worlds stripped without invasion, civilizations erased with no debris fields, no battle signatures, no survivors. We followed the pattern here. We discovered the Ark holding back a machine intelligence older than the current galactic order. We called it the Gravetide. The glass pillar brightened. Images flashed around the room, stars going dark, planets cracking open, fleets dissolving into dust as black geometric shapes passed through them. "It does not conquer," Cho said. "It consumes complexity, biology, language, machines, memory, anything organized, anything alive enough to become more than itself. The Ark's command seed controls the seal. Remove it, and the Hollow opens." Ilara looked at the dark seed. The Directorate did not want a relic. They wanted a key. Threx's voice returned, ragged with interference. "Take the seed now." Ilara backed away. "No." The collar activated. Pain exploded through her body. She dropped to one knee, gasping. Her heart lurched, stopped, slammed back into motion. Black dots filled her vision. The band tightened like ice around her spine. Threx's voice came again. "You will obey." Ilara crawled toward the pillar because her muscles were no longer listening. The collar had her nervous system. Her fingers stretched against her will. Finch shouted in her ear, "Captain, your motor cortex is being overridden." "I noticed," Ilara choked. Her hand touched the glass. The pillar opened. Cold light spilled over her skin. The command seed drifted closer. Ilara's fingers closed around it. The entire Ark screamed, not aloud, through every wall, every floor, every nerve. The Hollow answered. Outside the chamber, something vast shifted in the dark. Ilara saw Kestrel burning, saw Threx standing over the ashes, saw the Directorate opening the Hollow above rival worlds, saw black shapes pouring through and eating fleets, stations, moons, languages, names. Then she saw something else. A child crouched in a maintenance duct, holding a broken radio and whispering coordinates. A miner welding a bulkhead shut while vacuum clawed at his suit. A nurse carrying 2 infants through a burning hospital corridor. A soldier sharing oxygen with an enemy because the alternative was watching someone suffocate. 1,000 human moments. Small, stubborn, irrational, unprofitable, defiant. The seed pulsed in her hand. It was not asking for obedience. It was asking a question. "What will you protect?" Ilara screamed through clenched teeth and slammed her free hand against the compliance band. "Finch, burn channel 3 through my implant. That may paralyze you." "Do it!" A spike of heat shot up her neck. Finch overloaded the old medical port behind her ear, dumping raw current into the band's receiver. The collar sparked. Threx's control faltered for half a second. Half a second was enough. Ilara twisted the plasma cutter, drove it beneath the collar's edge, and fired. The pain was white and total. The band split apart. She collapsed, choking, blood running down her neck. The command seed hovered above her open palm, no longer dark. Its rings spun faster, reflecting her face in 1,000 fractured versions. The recording of Dr. Cho flickered again. "The Ark cannot be commanded by force," Cho said. "It answers only to minds that can stand alone inside the Hollow and remain themselves." Ilara laughed weakly. "That's a very specific hiring requirement." The chamber door opened, not the door she entered through. A new passage waited beyond it, lit in red. Finch's voice shook with static. "Captain, Directorate troops have breached the Ark." Of course they had. Threx had not trusted her. He had sent a boarding force behind her in shielded assault pods, using the Sparrowhawk's trail through the hollow. The Ark's seal had weakened when she touched the seed. Now enemy signatures moved through the structure, like infection. How many? 78 inside. More approaching. Also, the carrier fleet is advancing toward the hollow boundary. Ilara pushed herself upright. Her legs trembled, blood dripped from her fingers. The seed floated beside her shoulder. "Can we reseal the Ark?" "I do not know how." "Can we stop them from taking this thing? Statistically?" "Finch." "Violently, perhaps." Ilara picked up her pistol. "Violently works." The first Directorate soldiers found her in a corridor of mirrors. They were Volcran shock troops, bred in high-gravity fortress moons, armored from jaw to heel in black plates. Their rifles fired compression bolts that could punch through shuttle hulls. Ilara had a pistol, a plasma cutter, and a command seed older than her species' colonies. She waited until the corridor lights went out. The Volcran saw in heat. That was why she cracked a coolant line. White vapor flooded the corridor. Their targeting beams scattered. Ilara dropped flat as the first volley shredded the wall above her, rolled beneath a swinging blade arm, and fired 3 rounds into the exposed joint behind the soldier's knee. He fell hard. She shoved a charge pack into the gap between his back armor and reactor cell, kicked off his body, and dove behind a mirror panel. The explosion turned the corridor into a storm of glass. 2 soldiers went down. A third charged through the smoke. Ilara fired until the pistol clicked empty, then threw it at his face. He flinched. She stepped inside his reach and cut through his rifle barrel with the plasma torch. The weapon detonated in his hands.